Admin House, Astaphan QC, and we're dealing with the whole issue of what's going on with the CCJ. Tony, there were some commissions that were up about. Yeah, you wanted to? Yes, go ahead.
I want to deal with that. I also want to mention that this debate with the CCJ has been going on from the 70s, the 80s, the 90s. And there's some of the greatest legal minds in the Caribbean that have spoken out on that issue, which takes me back to the. If you bear with me 1 second,
sure, go ahead.
I'm just trying to find where I may have put that document. Yes, when it was addressed by the West Indian Commission. They said at page 499 of their report, he said, on the matter of judicial talent for staff in the court, there can be no room for doubt. Some of our highest judicial officers have sat on the Privy Council itself. The Caribbean has now provided a judge of the world's highest judicial tribunal, the International Court of Justice, which was Shuhabadin from Guyana. I think he may have been the first Caribbean man or the first black man on that court. Several of our lawyers have been in demand as chief justices and judges of the courts of the appeal in the jurisdictions like the Bahamas, Bermuda, Seychelles, and several countries on continental Africa. When the Commonwealth countries look for legal talent, it is often to the Caribbean that they turn. What ails us that we lack the confidence to go forward? That was in 1992. And Sir Dennis Byron was also the president of the International Criminal Court in Tanzania, and so on. So the debate goes on, and in the 1980s, De La Bastide, who was the first president of the Court of Appeal of the CCJ, said, is it not time to complete our independence? Simple question. In the course of a debate on the CCJ. Simple question. No rhetoric, no carnival, no bacchanal. Simple question. Then the Honorable Telford Georges, a great West Indian scholar, together with Cozy Harris and others, both Dominicans, so I'm taking a little boost there, who spent a considerable period of time in their adult life in Africa, helping Africa in the post-colonial period of time to develop their judicial system and laws, said this, starkly put, that is Honorable Telford Georges, the brother of the late Ephraim and uncle of Gregory Georges. Starkly put, it appears to me that an independent country should assume the responsibility for providing a court of its own choosing for the final determination of legal disputes arising for decision in the country. It is a compromise of sovereignty to leave that decision to a court which is part of the former colonial hierarchy, a court in the appointment of whose members we have absolutely no say. On achieving independence, the countries had a choice, either allowing appeals to an external court to continue or of abolishing them. It is therefore not a derogation from sovereignty to allow the appeals to continue. It was in effect an exercise of that right. I think this is the type of argument which the average man would call a lawyer's argument. It asserts that it is an exercise of sovereignty, of independence, to choose a situation of dependency. Sean,
that's the big word.
In real life, anyone who behaved in that manner would evoke pity and exasperation, like the grown man who continues to demonstrate his independence by continuing to live free at home, meaning his parents' home. Douglas Mendes, who represented the United Progressive Party in the 2009 election matters, said this: you cannot act as an independent nation, call yourself independent, if you must go to the foreign court for appeal. And there are many others, but I wanted to deal with the commissions. At page 61 of his masterpiece, Mr. Hugh Rollins said, the debate as to the desirability of establishing the court has ensued and continued for over 3 decades. Sean, that book was written over 15 years ago. 3 decades, 30 years. Everyone will no doubt agree that there's great force in the exhortation by the West India Commission that it is time to move from the debate stage to the establishment stage. Every Constitution Commission which has been appointed in any Commonwealth Caribbean country since 1970 has recommended the establishment of a regional court of last resort. The Woodin Commission did it in Trinidad and Tobago, Sean, in 1974. In 1974, I believe I was still in high school, right? With respect to the judiciary, the Grenada Constitution Revision Commission in 1985 was primarily concerned with the question of the return of that court to the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court system, and so recommended. It nevertheless suggested that cessation of appeals to the Privy Council should be a matter of common action, etc. The 1987 Constitution Commission of Trinidad and Tobago considered the question in some detail. The 1998 Constitutional Commission of St. Kitts and Nevis, which was chaired by Sir Fred Phillips, stated in support of the Caribbean Final Court, quote, in 1970-71, our chairman was a member of the High-Level Commission of Caribbean Jurists, headed by the late Mr. Justice Aubrey Fraser, which strongly recommended the establishment. That's 1970, you know, Sean.
I hear you, sir.
Which strongly recommended the establishment of a Caribbean Court of Appeal. Our commission can only at this stage, 28 years later, express our delight that the recommendation seems at last to be about to bear fruit. Such a court is long overdue, and we hope St. Kitts and Nevis will accede to the treaty as soon as circumstances permit. The report of the Constitution Review Commission of Jamaica 1993 noted that during the West Indies Federation, the Federal Court of Appeal performed its duties with commendable competence and therefore earned the esteem of the Caribbean bar. It recommended the participation of Jamaica in the regional court when it is established in preference to the institution of its own court. Sean, I could go on, but time is limited.
But you see that you're
30 years ago.
Yeah, but you're coming with facts. But now listen to this now. I see the phone lines. Just give me a few minutes, and I'm going to get to you. One of the things that happened, Tony. Now you just brought some facts. Now hear what the late Dame Bernice Lake QC said. She says that the Caribbean people lack confidence in our domestic legal system and yearn more for justice than they yearn for to be able to boast about having their final appellate court. Now that is the crux of the matter. How do you just gave some facts, and everybody, the facts are there, but we are looking past the court. So what are you saying? Is that we are linking the perception of corruption and the perception of it all rather than the reality of the facts?
We are those that are saying no, are speaking in hyperbole.
I think so.
In scaremongering, in vague, general, emotive, political language.
Emotive political language.
I would like to know whether an Antiguan and Barbudan would knowing that in the 70s the court ruled in favor of Camacho, Mrs. Camacho, against the government. Ruled against the government with the Antigua Times newspaper case in the 1970s. Ruled in favor of Tim Hector. Ruled in favor of Elroy de Freitas. Ruled in favor of Gaston Brown. Ruled in favor of what? Ruled in favor of Lester Bryan Bird in his defamation case against Baldwin Spencer, where the judge, the High Court judge of this country, spoke in stringent terms about the conduct of the Prime Minister. The numerous cases that have gone to the boundaries cases. Antigua has a history of the High Court or the Court of Appeal making decisions in favor of the thing. And the fact that you have an appeal, the fact that the Court of Appeal may disagree with the High Court and the Privy Council agrees with the judge is conclusively in favor of the integrity and the confidence building of the decisions of this court, because they have started the decision process in favor of the citizen. Now I hear a lot of people talk about the Observer case as an example. Let's just give them the benefit of the doubt. Say Observer is one. Observer case is one. They speak of the 2009 appeal from the Election Commission, the election petition. Sean, you know and I know, I told you we were not going to win the appeal.
Yeah.
And when Lester Bryan Bird, your uncle and my uncle-in-law, went on the radio and criticized the CCJ, I called him in the studio. He was on the phone here. And I said to him that his criticism of the CCJ was unwarranted because you cannot link a decision of the Court of Appeal with the competence of the CCJ. It's like, this is not a Star Trek movie. where you say, hey, Scotty, beam me up, and then you're in a different world altogether, completely fictitious world. The facts in the no sayers discussions are lacking. The move to the CCJ, even if I remove my personal opinion, I remove the personal opinion of those, the young boy Hewlett and Amaya Atil and others, Justin Simon that I've heard speaking, I can point to 10 commissions, constitutional review commissions from CARICOM, maybe more than 10, staffed and chaired by some of the most prominent jurists this region has been able to offer any country in Caribbean or the world, that have all come up unanimously with the recommendation for the CCJ. Who am I? Who am I to question the integrity and the competence of those who went through the analysis of the facts, went through the analysis of the law, looked at the history of the various courts, recommended institutional changes to protect the integrity of the CCJ? Who the hell am I to question men far greater than I in law, in politics, and in accounting, and in social sciences, who sat down on these commissions and came up with these reports based on consultation with the people and studying the law and the context of the law? Who am I to question them, even if I have the same opinion as they do?
Let me take a call. Good afternoon.
Hey, Sean.
Hi.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Hello.
Sean?
Yes, go ahead. You just broke out here.
Quickly, we should move, man. And I'm telling you, when Astaphan came here, he said, show us some money. And they show us some money, and he have the Queen head, and he said, it's a shame. We should be having VC Bird or George West on one of them. You're having a good program. Thank you, man.
Thank you. Good.
All right. Okay,
good.
Cool.
But I once said one day I want to appear in every court in the OECS. That when I look up, I see the head of the president and not that of the Queen.
I hear that. But you see, the thing that I want to do is that we have to put horses for courses. Yeah. But Tony, I just feel that the one thing that is hindering the unanimous support for the court is the politics. I don't think we have not matured enough, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. We have not matured enough to have a discussion. I mean, I have it hard pressed, and the first person to tell me about was my good friend there, Lukey. You have it hard pressed to have a good intellectual discussion without people having an emotive response, without the facts coming forward. So I'm asking you now, with all that you've presented here, I mean, you can go block for block with anybody. I mean, I was surprised that my good friend Kenny, when I hear how we come out and speak about certain...
Me not talk about Kenny.
Yeah, okay.
Because his mother and father go on.
Okay. You understand? I'm saying, what really going on here? Good afternoon.
Hello?
Hi.
Hey, Sean.
Good.
Yeah, good program.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm listening to y'all. Now, Antigua has a culture of you bring a good program to them, and everybody say, boy, that's a good thing, but, and then you're waiting to see what the but is, and then they go searching to find the but. And that's the problem now. They're just suspicious of nothing.
They haven't yet found the but.
They can't find the but.
Can't find the but.
It's a good thing, but. That's the problem.
My father would say
I don't think it's too much of the politics. I think it's more the psychology of the people. They just always think that there's something else behind the motive.
Brother, can I tell you something?
Yes.
I blame the politicians square on. And I'll give you the example. When the United Workers' Party were in government in St. Lucia, right? They had a cabinet decision to make an application to the Court of Appeal to get an interpretation of the constitutional provisions to see whether they needed to go to a referendum, or like Dominica could do it simply by an agreement with the Privy Council or the Whitehall, the government. They identified the lawyers. They identified the terms of reference. They lost the election. Kenny Anthony came on board as Prime Minister using the same cabinet decision. The only thing he changed was the lawyers. He hired me instead. So according to the reference rules in St. Lucia, you have to advertise the reference to the Court of Appeal and invite parties who want to object. Guess who turns up? Stevenson King and his United Workers' Party with about 12 lawyers to oppose the very thing that his cabinet and himself as Prime Minister had agreed to do. And the reason why he challenged it, because it was not politically expedient for him to allow a new Prime Minister, a succeeding Prime Minister, to be the one to carry his court in St. Lucia, the St. Lucian people to the CCJ rather than the Privy Council. So if he could not do it as part of his mandate, no other Prime Minister must do it. That was the cheap, naked, tribal politics that played out in St. Lucia. And brother, I'm getting the same smell here when I listen to all the radio stations.
And it seems that way. I want to read something else here again. In 2005, a total of 65 appeals from the English Court of Appeal was decided by the House of Lords. 45 of the appeals were allowed and 20 more were dismissed. If it makes sense to use bare statistics to determine the quality of a court's performance, the market product of the Eastern Caribbean Court of Appeal is better than that of the High Court of its English counterpart. It is also regrettable that the writer should seek to ascribe blame for lack of confidence in our justice system only to the judges and ignore the extent to which lawyers share responsibility when judgments are reversed. It is a truism that the quality of a court's decision in any given case is affected significantly by the quality of the input from the lawyers who argue the case and thus define for the judges the propositions of fact and law between which the judges must choose. So in most cases, what we're seeing here, Tony, is that they're putting it straight in the court rather than, as you said earlier, putting it on the judges and so who accept
the lawyers must take responsibility. Sure, we need to know what percentage of cases are adjourned, what percentage of cases are delayed by litigation and applications to the master, to the court, to this, to that. How many are delayed by bundles not being ready, submissions not filed on time, last minute this and last minute that. I mean, I'm not telling you that they're not genuine reasons. I have had to get adjournments on medical advice from Dr. John and others because of fatigue and so on, right? Sometimes I'm not well. One time I got into a car accident here and so forth. So there are legitimate reasons for delays. But how many of them are truly legitimate? I mean, how many times have judgments possibly been delayed because lawyers have not submitted their submissions to the judge to assist the judge in the development of the law and to determine the facts in the case according to the law. Lawyers cannot criticize the court as if they're sitting in Antigua recreation ground watching Viv Richard bat and complain because he get out from Lily or Robert. Learn to bat. Go to bat. Go to bat. And if you're in the court, you must tell us what it is that you're saying. Because Antiguans and Barbudans go to the courts every single day. Sean, every day I go to the High Court here at the Court of Appeal. People are sitting, nobody's complaining, nobody's crying, nobody's making noise. Everybody's being served. And as the Chief Justice once said in relation to the Boundaries case, I cannot give priority to some cases and not to all. Everybody has to wait their turn in the line. Again, I am not saying we have the most perfect system in the world. Right? But we are trying. The CCJ is assisting. The registrars are doing the very best they can. And if you really want to talk about delays, then we must do some soul searching ourselves. To what extent are we responsible for quote unquote the present problem? Because Sean, I can tell you, any case I do, if I suspect anything, I go speak out. The fact that I lose a case, the fact that I would lose a case that I thought I was going to win, it's not a basis to criticize the court. Because you have a court system simply because, like beauty is in the eye of the beholder. You may think somebody good looking, I may not. That's what the courts are for. The Court of Appeal will decide, and then the Privy Council or the CCJ will make the final decision.
Well, we're gonna have you back, and we're gonna continue. You're gonna be here. I want to get into the whole constitutional reform, and so many questions have come forward over the weeks. So when you're here, we got to go through some of that, Tony.
Well, I'm going to have to give you a full copy of the book by Sir Hugh Rollins and a complete report of the. Antiguans need to know that there was a constitutional review commission here from Antigua appointed in 1999 that delivered its report on the 28th of February 2002. And I think I need to give you a full copy of that so you can be able to better articulate it to your listeners.
I need that. I need that.
No,
badly.
you'll get it. You'll get it. You'll get it.
All right. That's Mr. Anthony Astaphan, QC. We got a couple more minutes left before we call it quits here on Open Forum. Remember, Tony, have a wonderful day. Take care.
Sure, thank you.
All right, bruds. Take care.
Don't forget to bring the crispy pork when you come in.
Okay.